wanna know his secret?
The Columbian Institute for the Promotion of Arts and Sciences in Washington, D.C., first suggested the creation of the Botanic Garden in 1816. The idea of establishing a botanic garden in Washington, D.C., was also supported by the Washington Botanical Society, organized in 1817, many of whose members were also members of the Columbian Institute. However, this society disbanded in 1826. In 1820, President James Monroe set aside 5 acres, 20,000 square meters, for a national greenhouse. Dr. Edward Cutt Bush, founder and first president of the Columbian Institute, was one of the earliest advocates for a plant repository and saw the necessity for a botanical garden where various seeds and plants could be cultivated, and, as they multiplied, distributed to other parts of the Union. The tract, which was swampland, was located next to the Smithsonian Museum and a mere 80 feet from the steps of the Capitol. The land was situated between 1st and 3rd Streets and Pennsylvania and Maryland Avenues on the west side of the Capitol building. It was originally owned by David Burns, the Scots farmer who owned much of the site of the city of Washington. He had been warned in 1796 that if he chose to plant crops on the avenue and the mall, it was at his own risk, as something might be done almost any time to make it thoroughfare. It is probable that Thomas Jefferson was the first influential person who took an interest in cleaning up the brush that covered the land. By 1810, some rows of Lombardy poplars had been planted. However, the avenue itself was too much of a morass to be traversed on horseback. Botanic Garden of the Columbian Institute at it. One of the greatest accomplishments of the institution was the creation of a botanic garden in 1821. By the end of 1823, the swampy tract of land granted by Congress had been drained and leveled, an elliptical pond with an island at its center constructed, and 4 graveled walks laid out. Trees and shrubs were planted, and the garden was maintained as well as scanty funds would permit until the institute expired in 1837, 1 year before the termination of its charter. On May 26, 1824, the grounds were extended, and in 1825, they were enclosed. There seems to be no record of what improvements or plantings were made by the Columbian Institute. The institute had expended $1,500 on the grounds for walks and plantings and had asked Congress to be reimbursed, but this request was not granted. Although the membership roster of the Columbian Institution included many distinguished citizens and several presidents, they were unable to raise money for the greenhouse and lecture hall. 10 meetings were held in a variety of temporary offices, including a committee room in the Capitol building that Congress granted use of on December 20, 1828. Despite all the hardships, the institute quickly launched an enthusiastic effort to collect plants and seeds. 10. In 1826, a committee was appointed to meet with heads of government departments to help solicit all subjects of natural history that may be deemed interesting from foreign representatives. The following year, Secretary of the Treasury, Richard Rush, was also involved in the solicitation by circulating a letter to foreign dignitaries. In the letter he stated that President John Quincy Adams was desirous of causing to be introduced into the United States all such trees and plants from other countries not heretofore known in the United States, as may give promise, under proper cultivation, of flourishing and becoming useful. The publicity was extremely successful. Plants and seeds made their way to the institute from as far away as China and Brazil. Some came from areas nearby, such as Montgomery County in Maryland. In 1824, a list of plants in the Botanic Garden of the Columbian Institute was prepared by William Elliott. The pamphlet mentioned more than 458 plants growing at that time.
Rob Stone, 2 damn phones, Babylon's came.